Cool, because I get to ask all these questions that I'm curious about. So thank you for talking with me about it. I think the first question is just what you see the role of mayor to be in the city of New Haven, and it's different from state senator, but how you envision that role in the city.
Well, I think the mayor is the leader of the city, but I see a leader as someone who brings people together. And some of the skills that I have are the skills of building consensus. So I think the mayor hears about where people want to go in the city, sets a course of action, and begins to build consensus around that. A mayor as well, just from a practical point of view, selects the leaders, the other leaders in the city government, and then assures as a manager that those leaders actually perform what it is they're supposed to do on behalf of the people of the city, so that they assure that the leaders work, that the departments work, that we have the tools in place to manage the departments from an accountability point of view. And so you're building consensus, you're managing, and you're moving the agenda of the city forward.
One of those differences that is particularly has gotten me involved in local politics is the wealth disparities across the city. And in trying to build these points of consensus, I mean, there's so many bridges to build from places that seem to be in very different places. So how do you see us overcoming some of these disparities and having real conversations about class and about race in the city of New Haven that can overcome that?
Well, first we've got to really attract good paying jobs in New Haven. We've got to assure that most of our jobs provide a livable wage, and that when we utilize the resources of both the city and the state to bring companies into New Haven, we've got to assure, one, that they hire New Haven, that they are decent paying jobs. So I think you have to do that, but if you really want to move population forward, you've got to assure that it's an educated population, and that one of the really disappointments is the achievement gap that we have in our town. And I believe that one of the ways that you minimize disparity is by overcoming that achievement gap and assuring that all kids in New Haven get a quality education.
Can you say a little bit more about that achievement gap? I mean, what is right now?
What the achievement gap is? Well, if you look at our mastery test scores, sometimes fewer than 25% of our kids across subject areas are actually at goal.
Wow.
And so it's a big problem when you look at kids who sometimes even get a B average and they go into a school, they're having to spend a number of years sometimes in remediation, so that the kids that are being educated don't even know that the education isn't preparing them for the next step. And I think that when we do that, when we assure that the education is a good education that prepares our young people for the next step, that's the best way that we can overcome income disparity, because people will be prepared for those jobs that pay well.
Right. Makes sense to me. I think along those lines, actually in kind of a strange way, as we sit here in East Rock, right? This is an area where some of the issues that are really affecting other areas of the city aren't quite at the forefront of people's consciousness when they're going into the voting booth. And I think one of the things that really is on people's mind is the the issue of taxes, of tax burden in this neighborhood. I think that kind of priority of issues speaks to some of these disparities. But at the same time, I guess, how would you address those concerns about the tax burden in particular areas of town, and how that might exacerbate the disparities, or what we would be doing about that moving forward?
I think that for all New Haveners, taxes are high, and that if you look at income and the burden, that they're high here in East Rock, but they're also high across the city, and sometimes the burden based upon income is even higher in some of the lower income
in terms of
neighborhoods.
percentage of
Yeah. And so I think that what we've really got to do, and I don't think that we do well, is that we have to have an accountable system of government that assures that we are also efficient. If you look at the PERF report, which was done in 2007 on the police department, you notice that it's really an inefficient management and administration of that department. And the department is what I would consider to be a department that should actually be very efficient and easy to manage.
Right.
And if that department, which seems like it would be one of the easier ones to manage, and there would be efficiencies there, and they're not, I'm just wondering what, once we peel back the onion, what it looks like in other departments. And I think for too long in this city, we have kept our eye off of assuring that there was efficiency. When I look at the number of assistant principals in some of our schools, doing things that really don't necessarily contribute to keeping the peace.
Right.
And the administration, but are just sort of there because no one was willing to make a decision about whether they should or should not be in our school system. But we're paying for that. These are things that we really need to take a close look at and assure, one, that we have an efficient government, that there's a way for you as a resident of New Haven to really look into each city administration to determine what is going on there and whether or not it's actually working and efficient, that we should be able to look at what the goals are for the department, look at where we are in terms of reaching those goals, and if we're not reaching them, determine why we're not reaching them and make adjustments. And oftentimes it's not money. Sometimes I think that we have a top-heavy system that is, again, inefficient. So I think first we've got to look at efficiencies, and we've got to assure the people of this town that we're using their taxpayer dollars wisely. The other thing that we've got to do, because so much of our property is colleges and hospitals, that we've got to argue with the state that, in fact, they should pay more. You know, we don't have county government here.
Right.
In our state and in other areas, county government pays for schools, pays for services over a broader area. And so we really only have the state to go to. But we've got to go with a real understanding of what it is that we can get and who our partners are. And I don't believe that we've done that in the past, and I think that's something that I can do because I sort of understand how it works. And
you've been sitting on these committees at the state level.
And, you know, we haven't had an urban mayor's forum since I've been in the legislature.
Really?
And there are so many things that we have in common as urban areas. And I think that's another way that we get resources into our urban areas that haven't gotten there before. We've been really competitive as cities when I think there's so many things that we have in common, that if we solicit the state together, that we could be together far more successful.
It's really, if I can just follow up with one more, because I mean that's really interesting to me. I'd never thought about that, the city standing together. But just to move back one point, I guess it's very encouraging to me to hear you say about the top-heavy elements of city government, because I've been at budget meetings where, you know, it's school nurses or cafeteria workers, that those are the areas that the city is looking at to try to be more efficient. And that just seems like those aren't the areas that we should be skimping, that we should be looking at some of the places that you're talking about.
I think that we've really got to demand that the administrative structures, not the services that we deliver, are where we get the savings. And that's what I've tried to do at the state. I know that it can be done, and it's tough. But you've got to decide: are our services more important, or the people that we want, our friends that we want to hire and give jobs to, more important? And I believe that the services are more important that the city delivers.
I agree. It's great. Thank you so much for chatting with me about these issues, and look forward to talking more with you over the course of the campaign.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.